The topic of this video is how to write the standard form of a circle given its general form. Thus far we've seen the standard form of a circle is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. So if we expand that, then we get what's called the general form. So I have an example here. Let's look at x minus 3 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals 4. Recall that when you expand x minus 3 squared, you get x squared minus 6x plus 9 plus y minus 2 squared is y squared minus 4y plus 4 is equal to 4. We can write this as x squared plus y squared minus 6x minus 4y. And if we subtract 4 from each side, notice that we get plus 9 equals 0. This is called the general form of a circle. More generally, we write the general form as x squared plus y squared plus ax plus by plus some constant c is equal to 0. The key thing about recognizing the general form is that the coefficient of the x squared and coefficient of y squared must be 1, really must be the same number. If it's not 1, we can divide it out, which I'll show you that in just a minute. But the other thing is that you have to have a sum of the x squared and the y squared. If that's a difference, we get into another type of equation, and if the coefficients aren't the same, then we get into another type of equation. But for right now, x squared plus y squared, you have to have the same coefficient on the x squared and y squared, and they have to be added together. Our goal, though, is to reverse this process. Like if I know the general form, how can I get back to the standard form? And that's going to come from completing the square, right? If I'm trying to create a perfect square trinomial in the x, a perfect square trinomial in the y, so that I can factor them as some binomial squared, then I can write it in the standard form. So let me show you how we can do this with two examples. So I have this equation, x squared plus y squared plus 8x minus 6y plus 16 equals 0. So I want to write it in the standard form, and then we'll also talk about what is the center and radius of the circle. For this process, I want to group my x terms together. So x squared plus 8x. And I'm going to leave a space. And then I'm going to group the y terms together. Y squared minus 6y, and leave a space. And then I'm going to take this constant to the other side. So the 16, I'm going to subtract from each side to get a negative 16 on the right. The reason why I've left the space is I want to insert the number that's going to make each of those binomials perfect square trinomials. Recall how to complete the square. If I have the coefficient of the x term is 8, I'm going to take half of 8 and square it. So that's 4 squared, which is 16. So I'm going to add 16, but remember what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So then, for the y terms, I have y squared minus 6y. So I'm going to have to take half of the negative 6 and square it, which is half of negative 6 is negative 3 squared is 9. So I'm going to add the 9, not to just one side, but to each side. And then I'm going to factor x squared plus 8x plus 16 is x plus 4 times x plus 4, or x plus 4 squared. Y squared minus 6y plus 9 factors as y minus 3 times y minus 3, or y minus 3 squared. And then negative 16 plus 9 is just 9. So from the general form, I now have the standard form of that circle, and I know that the center is HK, which remember we have to take the opposite sign, so that's negative 4, 3. And the radius is 3, because that's really, r squared is 9, which means that r is the square root of 9, or 3. In the next equation, I have 9x squared plus 9y squared plus 36x minus 27 equals 0. So I want to first realize that I can't have something other than a 1 on the coefficient of x squared and y squared. But I do notice it's the same thing, and they're added together, so I know it's a circle. I'm going to first divide everything through by 9. So I'm going to get x squared plus y squared. 36 divided by 9 is 4x, minus 27 divided by 9 is 3, equals 0 divided by 9 is 0. Now I'm going to group the x squared plus 4x, leave a space, plus y squared, and then I'm going to add the 3 to the other side. So what number completes the square for x squared plus 4x? So I have to take 4 divided by 2 and square it, which is 2 squared, or 4. And remember, what I do to one side, I have to do to the other, so I'm going to add 4 to each side. Now notice my y squared, there is no other y term, so I can just leave that as y squared. I actually don't have to complete the square there, because the coefficient of y is 0, so there's nothing I need to do there. So now I'm going to write this as x squared plus 4x plus 4 in the factored form, which is x plus 2 quantity squared plus y squared is equal to 3 plus 4, which is 7. So I know now that the center of that circle is negative 2, 0, right, because the term subtracted from y is 0. And then the radius, remember that r squared is 7, so that tells us that r has to be the square root of 7. So let me know if you have any questions about writing the equation of a circle in standard form. Thank you.